players, and you are not.
And we're not limiting this to current day. We're actually basically doing players that aren't even in the league anymore, right?
I have a
You got some
couple of
players in the league.
mine. I have one that's in the league and one that's out of the league for a couple of mine.
Okay.
And then one of them just retired, just recently
I actually went
retired.
three. All three of mine are actually all out of the league, so it's gonna be interesting.
Okay, all
Actually,
right.
no, that's not true. I have maybe one. I sort of have. I have one in the league, but that's about it.
Testing my historical knowledge here, I see.
Yep, not too far back.
All right, so if I'm just going to get right into it, my first matchup is Magic Johnson and LeBron James. I always thought that
Now,
I always thought that Magic was such a much better comp for LeBron just because of their passing skills, the athleticism. They're both pretty big, and they both kind of operate as their team's primary ball handler. I never liked the MJ to LeBron comparisons. Fundamentally, they're just two different players. So I think it's
yeah.
much better to compare LeBron to Magic than it is LeBron to MJ.
Yeah, I completely understand that for sure. And this is also I completely agree with you on that. I mean, Magic definitely plays way more like LeBron does now, or he played like more like how LeBron does now than MJ did, or Michael Jordan. But when we get into the comparisons, I actually at one point had a massive argument with a guy online on YouTube about this, the LeBron James Magic debate, and it's very difficult to really accurately compare players from one generation to another, Magic in the 80s and LeBron modern day. But I'm going to try and do my best to just judge this. And I'm not a LeBron James fan at all, so this is going to be an interesting one because you just have to respect what he's been able to do. I think I'm going to break it down just about what I think the other player does better. So I think scoring the basketball, I think you have to say LeBron James is a better scorer of the basketball than Magic Johnson. I think that's really hard to say. In terms of passing the basketball, I think it's hard to say Magic Johnson is worse than LeBron. I would say Magic's a better passer.
Magic might be the best passer ever.
Yeah, Magic might be the best passer ever. Also, his numbers in terms of passing are superior to LeBron's, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I'm pretty sure his numbers are pretty high up there in terms of assists per game. I think he averaged 11.2 per game in his career, so yeah.
LeBron's
averaged solid 7, but I mean, that's not his... I mean, that is part of his game, but he's also a pretty big scorer, which Magic never was as much. But scorer, point to LeBron, passer, point to Magic. In terms of rebounding the basketball, this is actually an interesting one because rebounds are really kind of it's kind of hard, I think, to compare rebounds, but I think Magic actually has an edge in this category, believe it or not, in terms of just total rebounds as an average, because LeBron averaged 7.3. I think are they almost identical? 7.3 total rebounds per game for LeBron and 7.2 for Magic, so almost identical in terms of rebound numbers. And you can get into some other stuff. I'm pretty sure as a career, LeBron has had a higher 3-point percentage. In terms of a field goal percentage, I'm pretty sure they're relatively close. So apparently, Magic is at a higher field goal percentage. It's really, you can get into the nitty gritty and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's so tough, man. It's so tough. I think I'm gonna go with. I think I will actually. I think I'll go with Magic Johnson just because I prefer him as a player.
Oh, we were so close. So close. I could hear the indecision in your voice. I could hear it.
I got to go with Magic Johnson. It's so tough to compare, though, because I think that because Magic played with those Hall of Fame players in the 80s, it's really tough to tell how he would have done without him. I still think he would have done so well, though, because a lot of times the thing that made Magic Johnson so great was he put his teammates in positions that were almost easy buckets. Not saying that LeBron doesn't, but because the three-point line wasn't as really a factor, I think that it allowed for him to get passes and get balls to guys in higher, efficient plays when he's driving, and just for layups. He probably wasn't looking for the three ball as much, so he kind of had to focus more on getting the easy buckets to his players, which I think allowed him to be a little bit more efficient in that aspect of the game. But I just like Magic. I like his ability to also hit free throws. One of the very high free throw percentage. I think he's a little bit more clutch. And early in his career, he kind of struggled with that, but obviously the famous hook shot against the Celtics in the finals. So I think there's just a little bit more for Magic from me personally. A lot of people will disagree with me on this for sure, but that's just my opinion on the matter. And it is funny how people talk about the Lonzo Ball, Magic Johnson debate nowadays. Like you can almost see with Lonzo, but like the fact that Magic can just make his teammates better, and LeBron can as well for sure. But I don't know, there's something about Magic that I feel like is a little bit of an added superstar mentality late in games that I value extraordinarily high when we talk about superstars, and you know that I value the end of game result and what they can do when the game's on the line more than a lot of other areas. So I got Magic, and I know you got LeBron. So I don't know if you want to go into a big debate here, but you can go on your point now.
Man, I'm disappointed. I thought I had you. I thought you were gonna pick LeBron fair. I got really excited. I had like a smile on my face on this end. I thought I would finally get you to say something positive about LeBron. No, but it is a really tough comparison. They play a lot alike, but again, you mentioned it. It's so hard to compare eras. You know, there was such a lack of 3-point shooting back in the 80s. At least compared to what it is like today. And, you know, it's tough. And then you look at things like Magic has a pretty similar rebounding numbers, but you got to remember for a little stretch there in his career, he was playing next to Kareem, you know, and has LeBron ever played?
Which is also surprising. You would think that his rebounding numbers would be a little bit lower because he played with a guy like Kareem, whereas LeBron never played with an excellent rebounder early in his career and with Cleveland. You would think he would get more of those numbers bumped up, which is a little bit surprising to me, but I guess not.
And you know, here's another thing that people don't really think about when you talk about rebounds. Guys that shoot the three ball in today's league, when shooting so many threes, long shots lead to long rebounds, which traditionally is going to bump perimeter numbers up. That's why you see guys like Westbrook, Curry, Harden, and all these point guards grabbing so many boards. A lot of them are coming off of really long rebound misses off the front of the iron, off the back of the iron, because when you shoot from that far away, you're just going to get a longer rebound. It's just how it is. Magic didn't really get the benefit of all that, so you're going to go ahead and assume that most of his rebounds came down there in the paint when he was battling with other big guys. So I am going to give the nod to Magic on passing and rebounding there, but the two areas where LeBron is clearly superior, in my opinion, is going to be scoring. Obviously, you know, Magic's career high, just shy of 24 points a game. LeBron averages 25, 26 for his career. You know, so scoring
27 actually, I think.
Yeah, scoring trends towards LeBron. But the deciding factor for me, it's got to be the defense. Magic was by no means a good defender. He was so tall, playing at the point guard position. He just wasn't really agile enough to keep up with some of the other guards that he was out there against. Whereas LeBron, you know, the multiple all-defense selections, finished second in Defensive Player of the Year in 2012, 2011. And there's an argument that he could have won. You know, at some point in his career, he was able to guard 1 through 5 efficiently for short stretches of time. Locked Derrick Rose up 4 games in a row in the fourth quarter in the 2011 playoffs after Rose won the MVP over him. So I think his scoring and his defense are miles ahead of Magic's. And while he's not quite the passer or rebounder, it's a lot closer than the gap between their scoring is. So I'm going to go with LeBron as the better player overall.
Or free throw shooter, yeah. But yeah, and it's tough to measure a lot of stuff. But I think we both understand where we're coming from. So I'm going to get into my first one now. We're going to go into point guards now. Who's better, Steve Nash or Jason Kidd?
Ooh.
This is another argument I got in with somebody online.
What? Okay. This is a tough one.
You can pull up the numbers for these boys because this can get a little bit.
This is
a little bit in depth in this one.
I'm gonna have to do that here because this is
off the top of your head. You might not even know what two to pick at this point because they're both tough.
Off the top of my head, I know Jason Kidd was able to carry his team to the finals in 2000. I believe it was 2004 against the Spurs. Nash never went to the finals as far as I'm concerned. So
But
that's a
also played
point
in the
for
Western
Kidd. He
Conference.
did play in the Western Conference, and there
Points for
was.
point for Nash.
I just wrote about that today, actually. There was a few instances where there were some questionable calls, at least questionable at best, that kind of helped keep Steve Nash out of the finals. You know, the infamous
Yeah.
hip check from Robert Ory that sent
Yeah.
Nash into the scores table and got two of his three starters suspended for taking a step off the bench. Um, I'm going to go with Nash. I'm going to go with Nash, and here's why. I think that Nash is the second greatest shooter to ever play. Not three-point shooter, but shooter overall, as in from deep and mid-range. He practically invented the 50-40-90 club, which is,
Yeah.
for those that don't know, it's 50% from the field, 40% from three, 90% from the free throw line. I think it's only been done like 12 times in the history of the league, and Nash has like
Yeah.
7 of those years. And he's actually just 1% off his field goal percentage from averaging 50-40-90 for his career. I read that on Reddit earlier today. Kidd was one of those guys. He's a fantastic passer. His basketball IQ was off the charts, but he didn't really have an offensive game until late in his career. You know, he was the resident triple-double expert before Westbrook came along. But he didn't really have the scoring arsenal that Nash did. He didn't really create for others. He couldn't shoot the three, couldn't shoot the mid-range. And Nash could. Nash could do all of that. He could pass the ball. He's one of the craziest, most creative, fun, beautiful passers I've ever seen. It just was fun to watch him play. Nash was the engine that pioneered Phoenix's 7 seconds or less offense during his time there with Mike D'Antoni, which kind of paved the way for the small ball units that we see today. You know, those guys that are out there to shoot threes and run up and down the court. And without Nash doing what he did for the Suns, I don't know if the league kind of takes a step in the direction that it did towards more three-point shooting, smaller lineups, faster pace. Kidd never really had an impact like Nash did. Of course, he went to the finals, but he got destroyed by Tim Duncan, who was just an absolute monster that series. But I think you have to go with Nash. They were equal passers. Nash was miles ahead, the better shooter and offensive player. And while he was terrible on defense, I think his impact on offense was so much greater than that of Kidd that it just outweighs the defense. Steve Nash, if he had gotten a couple lucky bounces and some not so crooked refs, we could be talking about him as a champion, maybe 1 or 2 time champion. Add that on to his 2 MVPs, and I think you gotta go with Nash here. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I go with Nash as well in this situation. I mean, he's a better scorer in my opinion. I mean, obviously the better shooter. In terms of passing the ball, you can make an argument even Nash is a better passer. As a player, making his teammates better, both are very good at that. And again, Kidd has went to the finals. You know, Nash never did. Kidd won a championship. Nash never did. But at the end of the day, you know, Nash stayed with Phoenix for a while and just couldn't get it done against the Spurs in their prime. Kobe in his prime. It was tough on him. I agree with all your points, though. I mean, better in a lot of areas. So much, just greater offensively that because even though Kidd was a very good defender. I think he was a 9-time All-Defensive player, which is very impressive. But I just think you have to give the nod to Nash, in my opinion. 2-time MVP for a reason. Again, invented the 50-40-90 club, basically. So I got to go Nash as well.
Yeah, that's a good one though. I didn't think of that comparison, but it's a good one. Pass first point guard, but one of them can score and one of them can't. Well, maybe it's not.
One of them
Maybe
played D, one of them can't. One of them played in the East.
one of them. Well, their scoring numbers are kind of similar throughout their career. Both of them kind of hovered around the 15 to 18.
But Nash was a better shooter by far. And
efficiency,
also a better
yeah.
free throw shooter. And efficiency is superior for sure.
I mean, Jason Kidd averaged 40% from the field for his career, which is atrocious. So.
and Nash almost went 50%. So
Almost
pretty
50%.
big difference there.
Nash shot better from three for his career than Kidd did from the field. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Nash, I mean, Nash was efficient, man. An efficient, great passer, very good player.
Okay. My next
We're
one.
going on to your second one. Yeah.
My next one. Prime Dirk Nowitzki or
Ooh.
prime Kevin Garnett.
Oh, for me, that's a tough one. First, that is an absolute tough one, and it's I gotta go Dirk Nowitzki though, prime. It's a really tough one, and I know that it's almost hypocritical of me because I'm normally really backing up a lot of defensive guys, but in this situation, Dirk Nowitzki did in 2011 in the playoffs. I had never seen it done before. I mean, the man basically just took over. It was really unbelievable to me. And as great as Garnett was in his prime, I never saw him really carry a team in the finals. I mean, in the finals, I mean, Dirk in the playoffs as a whole, averaged 27, almost 95% from the free throw line at that playoff run, almost 50% from the 3-point line, 48%, basically 49% from the field. He was so great during that playoff run that it's impossible in his prime for me not to put Dirk Nowitzki as better than Garnett. A lot of it goes to the fact that Dirk Nowitzki didn't even play with a player who made the All-Star team when he won his title, and he played against teams that had multiple All-Star players. I mean, the Thunder, you had Durant, Westbrook. You could argue Ibaka was a All-Star at that point, and Harden wasn't there yet. And then the Lakers, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, and then against the Miami Heat, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade. So I mean, the fact that Dirk was the only All-Star that year, and he still was able to beat those teams, just shows how great of a player he was, not only just as a scorer, but as a player who could lead his team in passing the ball and getting his guys opportunities. And it just felt like that year in particular makes it, just something that Garnett could never do. And it's unfortunate. Maybe it's in part due to the fact that he just didn't have a team, a coaching staff, because you have to give a lot of credit to Rick Carlisle and the staff in Dallas at that point that year. The roster they were able to put together, even though they didn't have an all-star team, they had really great role players and they knew what they needed to do to win. But to me, in a prime situation, Dirk Nowitzki offensively, Garnett was great too on both ends, to be honest with you. But when just what he did that year, that alone, and you can add numbers and go all you want on some efficiency percentages. Dirk is obviously a better shooter and a better three-point shooter, although Kevin Garnett was pretty good from the field in general. Free throw line, you can argue so many things, but that run was unbelievable to me. I don't think Garnett could ever do that.
I don't know if I've ever seen a player that will have his all-time rankings so drastically changed from one playoff run.
Yeah.
Wherever Dirk ends up in the all-time rankings after he retires, be it top 20, top 15, top 25, whatever, he has to owe it to that 2011 playoff run. Deservedly so. And I'm going to go with Nowitzki here too, even though there's a huge argument to be made for Garnett. In his prime, Garnett was putting up 24 a game, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. He had the all-defensive nods and all that. But Jesus Christ, Dirk in 2011, you're right. I've never seen anything like it.
It's just the fact it's just at the end of the day, you need to win a title, and he stepped up big time for his team, and he was clutch every game, and he won a title.
Not only did he win a title, the man lit the Western Conference on fire against some of the most talented teams this league has ever seen. Let's look at this playoff run. So 2011 first round, LaMarcus Aldridge, Brandon Roy, and the Blazers. Right? That was
Wait. I thought they played Lakers.
They played the Lakers in the second round.
Oh, I'm getting mixed up. I thought they only played 3 teams for some reason. Yeah, keep going.
Didn't it go Portland, LA, OKC, and then Miami in the finals?
Yeah.
So LaMarcus Aldridge, Brandon Roy, and the Blazers. And Dallas was actually predicted to lose that series. They were underdogs in that series.
Which is tough.
I mean, who else was on that team? Jason Kidd was like 40 years old. Jason
I mean, they
Terry,
have a lot of role players: Deshaun Stevenson, Peja Stojakovic,
Sean Marion.
Jason Kidd, obviously, JJ Barea, Sean Marion, Tyson Chandler. I think they had Brian Cardinal. I think was on that team. Jason Terry. So they had a lot of role players, but nobody was just a number one star.
So they knock off Portland, turn around. Now they've got the defending champs in LA. Kobe, Gasol, those guys. They swept them, didn't they? Didn't Dallas sweep the Lakers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they swept the Lakers.
Swept the Lakers.
Then they turn around.
OKC in 5, and this was the game. This was the game. The game one of OKC. I watched this game. Dirk did not miss a free throw. Hit 24 free throws. Scored 48 points, and was 80% from the field. I mean, remarkable.
That's ridiculous.
It was incredible.
So they
I remember watching that game.
They dispatch
Didn't even hit a three. Didn't even hit a three that game. I mean, it was just that.
Really?
Almost dropped 50.
Good God. No, but so yeah, they dispatch an OKC team in 5 that's going to make the finals next year. Durant, Westbrook, Harden, Ibaka.
Yeah.
Then they turn around and go up against this so-called super team, the Heatles, with Bosh, Wade, obviously LeBron, Mario Chalmers, guys like that, and Dirk he took it to another level and was by far and away the best player in the series. It was like he remembered 2006 and how Dwayne Wade just put on a clinic and was like, I could top that, and he did it. One of the wettest shots I've ever seen in my entire life is that rainbow 3 over Bosh at the top of the key where he catches and shoots it in like a fifth of a second, you know?
Almost one of the more unstoppable shooters I think ever.
He's like, he has the reach and the height advantage of Kevin Durant with an extra 60 pounds and a post game.
Yeah. And not that Durant doesn't have a post game.
He just doesn't have one on the level of Dirk.
Dirk Nowitzki on that one. So I guess I'll go into my second comparison, which is actually another power forward comparison that you made. This is actually a player you discussed in 2 different generations here. So another different generational one that is a little bit difficult to compare. But I don't know how much you know about this other player, but we're going to go Sean Kemp versus Chris Bosh.
Sean Kemp. That is a name.
I had to pull out a Sonics player, and it's an interesting one for you because I don't think you really know a lot about
I'm not
Sean Kemp.
I don't know a ton about Sean Kemp.
I know that you're pretty affiliated. I know you're pretty affiliated with Chris Bosh, but I also just want to look at the straight up numbers and just see how they stack up because I know both these players were kind of similar in that they're both just kind of power forwards that were all-star players but weren't quite great enough to make the Hall of Fame.
Bosh is a Hall of Fame lock. I'm calling it right now. 2-time champion, like a 10-time All-Star, isn't he?
Yeah. And according to the numbers right here, it actually looks like Bosh probably has the upper hand. But prime Kemp, man, in the 90s, that was a tough out.
Man, Kemp is like, if I'm thinking of the right guy, isn't Kemp like one of the greatest dunkers ever?
Yep.
Yeah. See, I feel really bad for Chris Bosh because LeBron was in the East doing LeBron things. There was the Celtics, D Wade was carrying Miami down in Florida, and so Toronto never really put a team around him that was good enough to contend. And so if he wanted to cement his legacy and get those rings that every player needs for talks about Hall of Fame and all-time rankings, then he needed to go to Miami. But he was the clear-cut third best player there, and people remember Chris Bosh as this guy that was kind of like the whipping boy for Wade and LeBron in Miami. People don't realize how vital he was to that team. Bosch is the reason that they were able to go small because he could step in from the power forward position. He could step into the center role and protect the rim at a decent rate. Um, and that allowed Miami to go with four perimeter players, which activated the trapping defense that they were so famous for. That insane swarming double team, flying in the passing lanes, fast break transition kind of defense that they ran so often and they just blitz teams with. That is all due to Chris Bosh. If they don't have Chris Bosh on that team, they can't do that. That being said, Chris Bosh was a legit, and I mean a legit, number one option when he was in Toronto. He was a 22 and 10 guy, night in and night out. You know, he was uber efficient, shot for the amount of, because he's a jump shooting big man. He's not like a banging in the post big man. So during his days in Toronto, you know, he after his rookie year and his sophomore year, he pretty much hovered around 50%, which 51, 50, 49, you know, which is pretty good for a guy that takes a lot of jump shots like Bosh did.
Yeah.
He was a pretty solid 3-point shooter when he did attempt the three, 33.5 for his career a couple times. It looks like he got close to 40. He did break 40% in 2007, so it's not like he was one of those guys that couldn't step out and hit the three when they needed him to. So I think that Chris Bosh is underrated, and I should have brought him up in our underrated, overrated pod because I really do think he's underrated. People don't talk about him enough. They talk about him as this third fiddle to LeBron and Wade, which he was for part of his career. You know, when LeBron left, Bosh instantly stepped into that role and averaged 21 points a game, 7 rebounds in 2014, 19 points and 7.5 rebounds in 2015, and then, you know, everybody knows what happened with the blood clots and all that. So that being said, Kemp was good.
I can go into the Sean Kemp.
You go into Sean Kemp
because I know. Yeah, because honestly, this comparison, Bosh is just superior in all facets in terms of just pure numbers. But I want to get some defense in for Sean Kemp because I don't think a lot of people know about his game. First of all, coming into the league, Sean Kemp was an extraordinarily young player at the time. Chris Bosh, I believe, was also very young, around 19. But at the time, Kemp was 20 entering the league and very young, didn't have a lot of a massive amount of guidance, and ended up being a very good player for Seattle on a year in year out basis. And really, people forget that the Sonics teams in the 90s were actually extraordinarily talented in terms of the players they had. I mean, at the time, they had some really talented players. Obviously, Gary Payton is a Hall of Famer. Detlef Schrempf was a very good scorer. They had Ricky Pierce at one point. Derek McKee was a very good scorer. They had Sam Perkins off the bench. Sam Perkins not off the bench, but Sam Perkins in general, a very good scorer. So Hershey Hawkins, they had some very good players around him. So some scoring numbers and some numbers in general were taken a little bit away from him and his production. But that said, he was still able to be a guy that could absolutely produce for his team and score. Average 18, 19, almost 20 points a game some years, and 10 rebounds for a consecutive 6 years of 10 rebounds a game. So very solid there, and one of the most athletic big men I've ever seen in my life. I mean, maybe the most athletic big man. You talk about LeBron James. Go watch some highlights on Sean Kemp dunking on some players. I mean, when you talk about creativity and athleticism, in the size of this guy, it's almost unparalleled. I really haven't seen a guy 6'10", 230, 240 go up and do the things he did. I know Blake Griffin's a massive comparison there, but you have to just go watch Sean Kemp highlights and just see what this guy was able to do with the ball in his hands. I mean, it was kind of incredible at times. Just showed some incredible flashes of brilliance. Averaged 20 a game in 3 consecutive playoff series in the 90s. Went toe-to-toe against Dennis Rodman in the 96 finals against the Chicago Bulls, and still averaged 20 points a game. And during that whole playoff run, just fell short of a title with Seattle. So a really great power forward, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a Sonics fan, so I'm always going to say that. but I do think he deserves some credit. But I think we both can really agree that in terms of numbers and what Chris Bosh accomplished during his career, it's tough to say that Sean Kemp is a superior player to Chris Bosh.
Now, I want to talk about the 96 finals because I don't know a lot about Sean Kemp, but I do know about the 96 finals, and I know that it's been said that in the first couple games of that series, Seattle took a lead, didn't they? They took a series lead, and the people were talking. Sean Kemp, I remember his name. People talked about him as the best player in the series. He was playing like the best player in the series. Then MJ did MJ things, but they Gary Payton, the glove, right? When he got put on MJ, he locked him down by Michael Jordan standards.
What happened was it actually was the opposite. The Bulls actually took a lead, and Seattle won 2 in a row, and were really on their way to a comeback. And then they ended up shutting it down in 6. But the problem was when they put Gary Payton on Jordan, it was looking troublesome because Seattle ended up blowing out Chicago, I think, on game or 2, and that's what got people really concerned because they were like, okay, let's hold up for a second. This shouldn't really be happening to a team that won 72 games in a season. So that's where things kind of got crazy for Chicago that year. But yeah, during the playoff run with Kemp in that finals was really good, and going against some tough players, and Dennis Rodman, one of the better defenders ever. So he put up a great fight, and in big moments still played really well, which was impressive for a guy who was about 26 at the time. So he had a tough time maturing in the league, but still really one of the great players that never probably even reached his full potential, which is crazy to think about because he still averaged 20 and 10. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. That was a good one. Chris Bosh, Sean Kemp had to get my Sonic in there. And I guess it's on to you for your final. Is it your final?
Yeah, this is my final matchup here. So, these two guys, one of them played power forward for half his career and center for the other half. The other one was pretty much exclusively at center, so it might be a little tough. But they're just flat out two of the most dominant big men in the history of the league. So that's why I'm comparing the two of them, and I'm interested to hear what your take is on this. Tim Duncan. Now, we can either talk prime Tim Duncan or longevity. Either one, whatever you want.
I'll tell you both. I have thoughts on both.
So prime Tim Duncan or career Tim Duncan versus prime Hakeem versus career Hakeem.
Ooh, wow, that's such a tough one. Wow.
I love Hakeem Olajuwon. I love Hakeem. I do. I think he's awesome.
Me to say. Jeez. The issue is they both play different positions. Played center a little bit. You know, he definitely played center later on in his career. I played power forward early. They played different positions, but if I had to go with a better player, even if it's just going off of their prime, I think Duncan never. I'm not sure if Duncan had a prime where I feel like he was just very good throughout his entire career more than anything. I feel like Olajuwon had more of a prime. That is a really tough one, though.
Prime Duncan was like, I want to say, you know, he had.
Or it was early 2000s.
Yeah, he had that crazy playoff run in 2004. I think that's when his prime really kind of started, and then it starts to drop off. Well, no. I'm looking at it here.
Both. I mean, Duncan was a 2-time MVP of the league.
Let's say Duncan's prime.
Also MVP.
Yeah, let's go. Duncan's prime is 2000 to 2005.
2000, 2005. Okay.
You can push it to 2007 if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's like a 7-year prime. That's not bad.
Yeah. And Olajuwon, I'll say this. I think Olajuwon was a better scorer than Duncan, so I'll go with that. In terms of a shot blocker, Olajuwon's the leading shot blocker of all time, so Olajuwon was better there, although Duncan was no slouch for being a rim protector. As an overall defender, that's a tough one because Duncan was just one of the best defenders, that the league has ever seen. But even as a passer, Olajuwon in ways was more efficient. Not more efficient, but I think Duncan probably a little bit of a head in being a passer. In terms of rebounding, I would expect Duncan to be better, but it looks like the numbers point towards Olajuwon having a little bit higher average, not too much, so that's not a huge difference right there. You could definitely make an argument for Duncan being a better rebounder there. Free throw percentage, relatively close. Duncan a little bit lower. Field goal percentage, Duncan looks like he trails a little bit, so you could legitimately make an argument for Hakeem Olajuwon in that situation. And I would probably go Hakeem just because it's the same sort of Dirk Nowitzki logic where he didn't play with Hall of Fame players, and he did have a good coach in Rudy.
We played with Clyde Drexler.
That was, yeah, he did, but he didn't win a title. That was past his prime, Clyde, but yeah. He didn't play with any Hall of Famers when... Oh, is Robert Horry a Hall of Famer? He's not.
He should. No, Big Shot Bob.
He's
Hall of Very Good. He's a Hall of Very Good.
Very good, yeah. He played with very good players. Also, just a very Dirk Nowitzki-esque Hakeem Olajuwon kind of type of career where he won those 2 titles. And Duncan was 2-time MVP of the league, so it is very difficult. I would probably go Hakeem Olajuwon, but it's so tough for me to pick for those 2 players. I mean, Duncan was so great and won 5 titles, right? I mean, that says a lot as well. So I don't know. Just off of numbers, you go Olajuwon, but sometimes in sports it's tough because Duncan might have gotten more, numbers, might have had higher numbers had he not played with those Hall of Fame players, Olajuwon probably had to carry a lot of the load because he wasn't, the guy, didn't have, a Ginobili or Tony Parker or, some of these other players. So it is really tough to compare. Purely off numbers, I go with Hakeem Olajuwon, but if we're going to go off of a career, Duncan had a better career. He won more titles. He, was... So prime, I go Olajuwon. Career, I go Duncan.
Yeah, I think that's got to be... Obviously, in these kind of debates, there's no right answer, but I think that's as right an answer as you're going to get.
Yeah, it's tough.
Hakeem, in his prime, Hakeem was absolutely ridiculous.
Probably unstoppable.
Every end of the court.
I don't think anybody could stop him in his prime.
I mean, let's just look at his 1990 season, which is his 6th season in the league. These numbers are just insane. 24 points a game, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 4.5 blocks a game. So when we factor in blocks and steals, Hakeem altered 6.5 possessions every single game. That's a 6 to 10 point swing right there every game.
Yeah.
Looking across the board, it's like there's really nothing that he wasn't great in. You look at his field goal percentage, 50% that year. Obviously, he's not going to be a good 3-point shooter, but he's just...
Neither was Duncan.
It's just not part of their game. It was a different league back then. He was a 71% shooter from the line that year, grabbing 3 offensive rebounds a game. Yeah, Duncan had that run in 2004, which was crazy, but I don't know.
It's tough, man. It is so tough because they just played in different situations. Who knows what Duncan would have done if he didn't have Ginobili, Parker, and Popovich. We'll never find out. But Hakeem in his prime, I mean, as a shot blocker, as a defender, as a scorer, you could definitely make the argument he's better than Duncan. So that's a tough one, but you could legitimately make that argument. Okay. This last one is actually going to be a really fun one in my opinion, and it actually is another former Sonic, but it's a good one, and you know about him at least this time, or at least probably hopefully more about him. But it's going to be Dwayne Wade versus Ray Allen.
Okay, I know this one. I can do this one. See, another one. See, this
is a tougher one than I think people think.
It is. Top of their head. It really is, and here's why. Because you ask anybody that's watching the league right now and ask them, tell me about Ray Allen, what are they going to say? There's 2 things that come to mind. 1, Ray Allen winning a championship with the Celtics, and 2, Ray Allen hitting a jumper to tie against the Spurs, and essentially sealing the championship for Miami, right? So those are the 2 things you're going to think about when you think Ray Allen. Obviously, probably the second greatest 3-point shooter of all time. Some people are going to put Clay up there, and I can actually see that argument. I don't know
Clay is very similar, though. Very similar.
Clay really is. But Ray Allen in Seattle was so much more than just a guy that hit threes. He was a legit primary option in Seattle. He could attack off the dribble.
All-star every year. Every year he played All-Star.
he could attack off the dribble. You know, it wasn't like he was some slouch in that regard. Obviously, he was a deadly shooter. You know, he was putting up 20 points per game seasons. He was a legit scoring option. And
he was 50, 40, 90 close mature. I mean, he wasn't there, but he was you know, a guy that hypothetically could be in that situation. He just never had the field goal percentage, but was relatively close to that area because of his just great free throw shooting abilities.
Yeah, his time in Seattle was really solid. You know, 23 points a game, 25, 26. Yep. He was just lethal, and you know, his three-point percentage, you know, hovered around 40% during those years. And
consider he's the number one option at this point. Seattle doesn't have a lot of guys. They got Rashard Lewis they're working with. They're working with Luke Ridnour, for God's sakes, as their starting point guard, Earl Watson, you know, Nick Collison. So they're not working with a lot, and he's still putting up these numbers and playing pretty efficiently. So you have to take that into account. Whereas, again, we're going to look into Dwayne Wade. Wade played with some decent players in his career. I mean, obviously, that happened a little bit later, but Shaq, you know, that's a pretty helpful player. Ray Allen never had a Shaq on his team when he was the number one scoring option. So
Shaq was washed up when he played with D-Wade, though. Shaq was washed up. He was like a 12-8 kind of guy. Just you're pretty much your standard center at that point. And I'm a huge D-Wade fan. Yeah, center nonetheless, yeah. Did Ray Allen, you're a Sonics fan, so you'll know this, did Ray Allen get a season with rookie Kevin Durant?
Nope.
No?
They traded him before that. Yeah, they traded him away to Boston.
Okay, yeah. So he didn't get to play. Because I know he ended his season, like his last season in Seattle was 06-07. And I know Durant was drafted in 2007. I just can't remember when. But Dwayne Wade. Let's talk about D-Wade. Let's talk about Dwayne Wade here.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing. Chris Bosh syndrome. People think of D-Wade as a second fiddle to LeBron. But they forget that D-Wade actually won a title before LeBron did. In 2006, Dwayne Wade put the Heat on his back and carried them to the finals with a washed up Shaq on his team and dominated. I would argue that behind LeBron... Okay, so if I were to rank finals performances... of the past 20 years, 15 years, it would go LeBron in 2015 against the Warriors, LeBron this year against the Warriors, Dirk. Now, Dirk could take one of those two spots. This isn't like in order, just these are the ones that I think about.
Yeah.
So LeBron in 2015, LeBron in 2016, Dirk in 2011, Wade in 2006. And I actually put Wade in 2006 probably above Dirk in 2011. After Game 2, Wade averaged almost 40 points a game. He shot an insane number of free throws. He was getting to the line like an absolute madman. There was no stopping him. I don't know if I've ever seen a player that determined to just will his team to a championship, except for, like we talked about earlier, Dirk. Those two guys pretty much did it on their own. There wasn't any other real superstars to help them. You know, Shaq was still good, but he wasn't anything like the Shaq that we had come to know and love in Los Angeles. And so I'm going to go with D-Wade over Ray Allen. I think that's just me personally. Dwayne Wade is one of the greatest scorers this league has seen since he got drafted. The post-game, the mid-range, the craftiness. I think injuries really kind of robbed us of a lot of what Dwayne Wade could have been. You know, he had the knee surgery his year at Marquette. He had the meniscus taken out. There was a stretch there in Miami where he only played like 50 games a season just because of his knee swelling up and all that. So I think that injuries kind of really played a role in Dwayne Wade kind of dropping off as soon as he did. But that being said, his peak was right up there with Kobe and T-Mac as the best shooting guard peaks that we've seen in the last 20 years, since MJ pretty much. Allen Iverson was, you know, he bounced between point guard and shooting guard, so I don't really count him there. In terms of just pure shooting guards, it's got to be Kobe, Tracy McGrady, and Dwayne Wade as 1A, B, and C. So I'm going to go with Wade over Ray Allen. But there's a serious case for Ray Allen. He's incredibly underrated by a lot of people.
The case make for Ray Allen is he was, and the other thing about Dwayne Wade is who knows what happens if he doesn't have 45 combined free throw attempts in his or 46 combined free throw attempts in his last two finals games of the 2005-2006 finals, I believe. So it is a lot of probably Dallas Mavericks fans get into that. I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of Mavericks fans out there probably.
Well, it's not like it's not like he wasn't a guy that never got to the line. I mean, D Wade is a slasher. It's what he does.
Yeah. But I mean, getting to the free throw line about 25 times in a game is a bit unusual. But looking at the numbers, for sure, I think you can make the argument that Wade is a better scorer. I mean, just in terms of driving to the lane and the free throws that he got going in his career. Ray Allen was never a guy that got to the free throw line that much, so that helps him out a lot, bumping up his point per game average a little bit more. I feel like as the number one man, Dwayne Wade obviously was able to control that. I mean, for sure in Miami, even without LeBron, and just putting up some great numbers in terms of scoring and obviously 2-point percentage. 3-point percentage is obviously a whole different ballgame that will go to Ray Allen every day of the week, and field goal percentage will go to Dwayne Wade because he's not going to shoot a bunch of threes. He's going to take high percentage shots. So it is tough to calculate. Free throw percentage will go in Ray Allen's favor in terms of giving the ball to guys and passing the ball. Ray Allen a little bit underrated in that area, but obviously that's going to go with Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade probably a better defender as well than Ray Allen, and so there's definitely tons of arguments you can make for Dwayne Wade. That's probably why most people go with Dwayne Wade, but. And Dwayne Wade was also not a pretty clutch shooter, so that's why it's tough. Ray Allen was arguably one of the most clutch shooters ever, so that's a tough point for people to knock off him. I think it is tough to go with Ray Allen based on his career. I'm going to go with Ray Allen just because I feel like the longevity of his career. I think that when he got older, even into his late 30s, I feel like he was still a serviceable player. At 37, 38, wasn't averaging a ton of points per game, but his value was still there. And Wade's is kind of dropped off quite a bit now. He can't do what he used to do. And I'm a Sonics fan, so I'm gonna go with that. I'm biased as well, so I'll go with Ray Allen. But Dwayne Wade, in terms of numbers, in a lot of ways, is probably superior.
Well, we'll see two things. One thing that you said, Dwayne Wade being the superior defender. I think that Dwayne Wade is the best shot blocking shooting guard of all time.
Yeah.
Just the way he would come from the help side and just swat opposing guards. It was unbelievable. It was so much fun to watch. And also, when we talk about Ray Allen and what he was able to accomplish, obviously, his career longevity, you said he was still a serviceable player even at the end of his career. 2 years after he retired, there was talks about him maybe joining the Warriors. I was all for it. I loved the idea. I wanted Ray Allen on the Warriors in 2015. I would have loved to see it. Can you imagine?
See what would happen.
Can you imagine the opposing coach when Golden State trots out a lineup of, Steph, Ray Allen, Clay, Iguodala, Durant, and Draymond? What do you do?
That's 6, but yeah.
Yeah, take. Well, I think it was the year before KD. That's why I didn't want to toss him in there. But even imagine Ray Allen on the Warriors now.
KD. It was the year they had KD.
It was. Was it? Well, yeah. Let's.
Because they had the Full House video of Ray Allen and Durant and Curry and Klay Thompson and Iguodala.
All right, so let's think about it now. Let's toss out. So let's say you trot out a lineup of Curry, Ray Allen, Clay, Kevin Durant, and Omri Caspi. That
3-point. I mean, how do you stop it?
They might shoot 50% from
perimeter.
Just the penetration that Curry and Durant can get would pull in, the defenders, and you just kick it out. You're kicking it out to a 45% shooter on every point of the court.
Yeah, arguably the two best. You arguably have the 3 best 3-point shooters in NBA history on that team. That would be remarkable. Even Ray Allen in his late career could still get it done. I mean, he's in shape now, so he can still play. But it is crazy. But I think that about wraps up all of our matchups. Do you have anything else to add about anything we've done thus far?
No, I think this was fun. I really like thinking about it's hard. It's hard to do, but I like
Yeah.
comparing different eras. Um,
This was a good one. We actually had some really nice matchups today, I thought.
and it's really tough sometimes. Like you think about a guy like Wilt
Hmm.
Chamberlain, how he would do in
Yeah.
today's league, and it makes you think that sometimes when you're ranking guys and where they're gonna end up on all-time lists, you have to look at the context. You have to look at the league. I think that if you put LeBron in on Wilt's team, you know, he would dominate. But at the same
Hmm.
time, if you put Wilt in today's league, he might not do as well as he did. It's just a completely different game. That doesn't diminish anything that Wilt Chamberlain did when he did. Does that make sense? You have to look at how they
Yeah.
were relative to their era, and Wilt was
Yeah.
the best center in the league. I don't care how many times Bill Simmons tells me that Bill Russell was a better center. It's just not true. I'm sorry. Wilt was the better player. And even though he might not be as successful in today's league, that doesn't diminish anything that he did. I think that you got to be careful when you compare guys from different eras, and
Yeah.
just make sure
Yeah.
you look a little bit deeper than just the stats.
It is really tough. There's so many hypothetical situations. The teammates they played in, the era, the rules, the conference. There's just a million things you can point to that makes it really difficult to just narrow down and specifically decide who is a better player within these head-to-head matchups.
Well, yeah, and like you're going to talk about rings, Hakeem played in the middle of Michael Jordan's prime.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously his ability to win championships is gonna take a hit there. So you can't just be like, oh, Shaq has more rings than Hakeem. He's a better player. Well,
Shaq also had Kobe, so
yeah, Shaq had Kobe, and so you really got to think about it. It's tough.
and Phil Jackson.
Yeah, Kobe, Phil Jackson, they had Gary Payton and
Karl Malone. That was later. That was 2003,
I mean they were still
2004, I
kind of
believe.
washed up, but they were still decent.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that about wraps up the podcast today. Episode 4 of our head-to-head matchups, hypothetical situations of historical players, both all-time and current day players. Anything else you want to add before we end this?
Nope, just as always, give us a follow on Twitter. Check out our YouTube channel. Um, Matt, he's kind of like the resident YouTube expert, so he's been working on our channel a little bit. So it should pick up in quality now that he's handling it and not me. I know nothing about YouTube. Our first podcast was the first YouTube video I've ever uploaded. So, um, and check out our articles. I put one out today on theheatcheck.com at WordPress. I think I have another one coming out tomorrow talking about some
I'll
rookies.
link everything in the YouTube video, and we'll have the Twitter link set
Yeah.
up and everything in the blog. So we'll get everything.